So I set up a vertical surface to demonstrate the fundamental principles of third axis leveling on a bow sight. So the first thing I'm going to do is verify that that piece of plywood is vertical plumb. And for anybody that's familiar with levels, you'll recognize that brand as being a very good quality German level. And now I'm going to move the level back to the middle of the plywood to verify that we're also level at this end. Plumb. Now I'm going to switch levels because the 4-footer is a little bit unhandy. But this 2-footer is the same brand and it's still calibrated the same. So we're level regardless of which way we put it on there. Currently the vial, the bubble inside of this level is perpendicular with the two leveling surfaces. In other words, it's straight across from this surface to this surface is perfectly perpendicular. So in that condition, it doesn't matter how much we tip the level, the bubble will remain in the middle. That's what you're doing when you use a bright sight style leveler. You're setting this vial so that it's perpendicular to the sight extension. It's basically doing that. And you can absolutely use just a common square like this, and it will do exactly the same thing that a bright sight will do. It's squaring this vial to the sight extension. Now, if your bow does not torque when you draw it, that's an ideal condition because this vial will always remain perpendicular to that surface no matter how much you tip the bow up or down. But as soon as you introduce torque into the riser and tip the bow forward, you can see that the bubble runs off to the right. Or if you torque it left and tip the bow down, the bubble runs off to the left. And the reason is because when you have torque, this vial is no longer perpendicular to this surface. This surface represents the arrow or your line of sight. That is not necessarily in line with a riser that is torqued. So just to be clear, when you draw a bow and it torques to the right, that's the same as this level torquing to the right. The vial is located inside and attached to this level, the same as that level is attached to this riser. So as soon as you torque it to the right, you're doing the same thing as doing that. Or you torque it to the left, that's the same as doing that. So in that condition, with a little torque in that riser and you tip it forward, the bubble runs off to the right. Torqued, tipped. So how do you correct that? Well, you would have to cant the bow. The further I cant this bow, that bubble will come back in the middle, but clearly this riser is no longer vertical any longer. If you have a bow that torques more, you're going to have to introduce more cant, or a bow that torques less, you would have less torque, but you can still see that there's significant cant in this riser. So the way you correct that is to level or square this bubble at full draw so that it's square with your arrow, with your line of sight, not with the riser, with your line of sight. You would rotate this bubble, in this case the left edge, back toward you. That would re-square it, and then when you tipped forward, the bubble would remain square with your arrow, with your line of sight. So that's no torque, torque. And the way you would correct that on a bright sight is to cant your bow to bring that bubble back in the middle. That is absolutely going to make you impact right, because your bow is canted over just the same as if it was canted while you were vertical.